Next story is one that concerns the AEW Disciplinary Committee, which maybe was the working title for this group that the devil is leading, the Disciplinary Committee, if we can only so hope. But this report came from Fightful Select, who this came after a tweet from Bryan Danielson that kind of sparked this when 2 days ago on Monday, so this is 2 days after CM Punk shows up at WWE, he wrote, "My dad always told me the right thing is often the hardest thing to do. It won't always make the most money. It won't always be the most popular, but it's still the right thing." So this was kind of a cryptic message, and this report by Fightful gave a bit more of context to this. And the report reads that Fightful revealed that a long-rumored member of the disciplinary committee, Mega Perek, had actually stepped back from a lot of her duties as chief legal officer by that time when this was all going down around All In, All Out. We've since learned that AEW general counsel Chris Peck, who assumed many of her responsibilities, was part of the three-person committee along with an outside attorney. However, there was also one long-respected member of the talent roster that was involved in Bryan Danielson. When asking sources on the AEW roster about his inclusion, one called him an appropriate moral compass who exemplifies objectivity and said that he effectively headed up and was the face of the disciplinary committee. Danielson was said to have spoken to the roster when addressing them about Punk's termination and noted that the decision was a particularly hard one. He cited the positives that Punk brought and his longstanding friendship with Punk, but said that it was the decision that had to be made. Now, it's also worth noting that when they announced Punk's release from the company in the press release, it stated that following the investigation, the AEW Discipline Committee met and later convened with outside legal counsel before making a unanimous recommendation to Tony Khan that CM Punk be terminated with cause. So this was, the committee was in agreement and made this recommendation to Tony Khan that he said both in his address in Chicago and it was conveyed in the press release. But I just wanted some of your thoughts, Wei, about going about this and utilizing somebody on the roster that I think would be pretty universally respected. Like if you were to look up and down the roster of someone you would appoint for such a role, I think it'd be a short list and Danielson would be on that list. But in any way, do you think that puts any conflict, just in the sense that here is a performer and he is put in this dual role of management and a member of the locker room? Like it is quite a bit of a burden to put on one guy's shoulders, I would say.
Mm-hmm. I would say yes, the answer to that specific question, but I think we might be able to make exceptions depending on who exactly we're talking about, right? And I think somebody like Bryan Danielson has had enough of a track record throughout just his reputation doing anything, as somebody who would be impartial enough to be able to, just do that particular job without sort of like, any politics perhaps attached to it. So I heard this, and however it got out, okay, the timing felt kind of interesting with him, like almost like leading everybody on using a tweet like this, almost claiming a responsibility before the story even broke from Fightful. Basically almost, kind of taking ownership of, at least partial ownership of the decision to, fire CM Punk. So I found that kind of interesting. But if you're looking at that locker room, and if you're looking at potential leaders and people who seem to be able to get along with everybody and are tremendous, like incredibly smart, and hopefully will have the company's interest first of all in mind, I think Danielson is at the top of that list. So if the AEW locker room is okay with it, then why wouldn't he be elected as their representative?
Yeah, listen, at the end of the day, I think he made the decision that was the decision they had to make. I don't see any way after all of that goes down that you can bring this guy back again. So this was certainly someone that at the end of it made the decision with a company in mind and a locker room in mind, as opposed to this being somebody that I've known for 20 years and that I'm going to go out on a limb and stick up for. Yeah, it's a tough situation to be in, but I think he acted out in the way that I think any neutral party would have to come to that conclusion, that there was a point of no return and they had tried very hard to bring this individual back. And this was a problem, that this was a very significant move that they had to make with the knowledge that this outcome of CM Punk going to your competitor was a viable option. And
Mhm.
like it is going to be painted in such a way that, man, did AEW fumble things with CM Punk? Like, what other option did they have? This was not a case of the company not realizing what they had in a CM Punk or underscoring his value. It was, man, they tried to rectify and gave him so much rope that it was a case where this was an untenable situation.
Well, the argument from people that I think would be defending CM Punk would be that how much did they actually try to rectify the situation itself? How much did they do in preventing the situation from getting as bad as it did in the first place? And I think a lot of blame could be, we could dial it all the way back to before the workers' rights promo and everything else, and even ensuing after everything that had occurred. How much did management do to create an environment or a positive result could have come out of these differences? I mean, we'll never really know the answer at this, but we could talk about it. So anyway,
we can legally talk about it.
we can't legally, but by the time all in happened and the fight occurred, you're right. Like there was no other choice but to sever those ties.